Hi, my name is Peter Kaplowski. I am the Midnight Madness programmer at the Toronto International Film Festival, and it is my great pleasure to welcome writer, director, horror maestro, Rob Savage in the house. You have all just watched and experienced and endured Dashcam. Rob, this is when I can't wait to do a Q&A with an audience, but because I feel like there's going to be so many questions, but I feel like the question that is going to emerge minutes into people watching this film is, who is Annie Hardy? Where did you find Annie Hardy? And what inspired you to take such a chaotic character and make them the protagonist of a horror movie like this?
I mean, the thing that I'm always looking to do in my horror movies is I'm looking to kind of take the standard tropes, or take a demon possession movie, take a séance movie, whatever, and kind of inject a character who would react in a way that most normal people wouldn't react. I think that's really interesting, and that suddenly kind of flips these tropes and makes them feel new. So I was kind of looking around for a new way at, I've always wanted to do a kind of demon possession movie, which I suppose this sort of is. It evolved, but I was kind of looking for a way in. And Jed Shepard, who's one of the kind of co-writers on this, sent me a link to Car, which is this show that Annie does, where she drives around LA and she takes words from the audience and incorporates them into this kind of freestyle rap that she does as she drives around doing groceries or whatever. And she, just from watching Annie for a minute, as everyone will surely know by now, you just see that her brain works like nobody else. Like, she's so fascinating and so interesting and so charismatic. I just saw her and I was like, I want to see her be chased by a demon. I want to make that happen. And I think that's going to be interesting.
Like, to her, like, what did she think when you reached out?
She was really chill about it. She was really skeptical about it. I mean, I think, she was, she's so kind of present and in the moment in terms of, that's what's so great about doing a movie like this that's improvised, is that we could really lean on Annie and her kind of spontaneity and wit. So she really wasn't thinking about the movie until she was on set doing the movie. There wasn't much prep that went into it. She knew that she was playing a version of herself, and I kind of jumped on calls with her and kind of figured out who she was and who she wasn't, and we tried to shape a character that she'd be comfortable playing, but that wasn't just herself. It's a very kind of dialed up version of herself.
Yeah. And were you ever concerned at all or worried, especially in this always online social media climate, that you'd be, platforming an individual who had ideas that are sometimes not popular and that would be considered conspiracy theories? Was that ever a concern, or is that also, again, part of the project of exploring this character?
I mean, I think we knew very well that we were playing with fire, but I think it was when I felt this when we made it, and I feel it even more so now as things have really heated up with the vaccination rollout, is that we're going to enter into a world very soon where we're going to have to live shoulder to shoulder with people who demonstrably don't share our values. There's going to be a certain kind of portion of the population who don't get vaccinated, who don't believe in that, and to some degree are kind of living in a different reality. But it's the way forward, I think, is to not demonize people who hold these different beliefs. It's to engage in conversation about that. It's to I think Annie's just such an incredibly talented individual to kind of totally discount all these amazing qualities about her because of these fringe beliefs that she holds. I don't think it's the right approach.
I also think that, too, the horror genre is one of the few genres where you can confront individuals that I do not reflect necessarily the audience's beliefs. I mean, I even feel it's interesting, too, this idea of subverting genre through throwing a character that reacts in a different way that one would expect. I mean, I think Evil Dead's Ash, for instance, reminds me a very similar kind of character, too. Perfect. Yeah, no, like I feel like there's a bit of DNA to Annie's chaos is similar to the DNA in Ash's chaos. A character, too, who I think you know, as we saw in like the Ash TV series, it does sort of represent kind of a reactionary character.
Yeah.
So I drew that correlation myself. Now the other question.
Totally.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead, Rob.
No. Well, I mean, that was the thing. Is like, you know, the first thing I thought when I saw Annie is like, I want to see her covered in blood. I want to see her really put through the ringer. And like, we were really using the Evil Dead as a reference, especially Evil Dead 2, which is my favorite movie of all time. Just that kind of nonstop, you know, what the fuck now kind of approach.
There's that ping-ponging between horror and then mania. Like the moments in Evil Dead 2 where Ash just starts laughing, like things are so scary, now we're laughing. And Annie has that fluctuation as well sometimes, where like the most horrific thing just happened, but she'll suddenly make a joke because that's like how she reacts and how she responds to things.
Yeah, totally. And again, it's like you can take a situation that would feel kind of familiar, and as soon as you throw Annie Hardy into it, her reaction makes it feel like something totally other.
Now, the other question that I think will come a little bit later when the audience is watching the movie, because I do feel like this is a movie that if an audience is watching, especially at home, they're like taking the phone out, they're like Googling and like, who's Annie Hardy? Da, da, da. But what they also might be doing is wondering, who is Angela? Where did you find Angela? Tell me all about Angela, because when I showed this film to a number of my colleagues at Tiff, a lot of them were definitely on Team Angela. They were rooting for the demon.
Yeah, that's
please
fair.
tell me about Angela.
Angela's, I mean, she's incredible, isn't she? She's basically, we were looking for, you know, we were looking for somebody, an older woman who'd be up for totally throwing herself into the stunt work, all the kind of crazy performance stuff that was needed for this part, and we just couldn't find anyone who fit the bill, who had that kind of that gaunt, interesting, striking look. But also felt like could keep up with the pace and was up for just throwing themselves totally into the stunt work and into the performance. And I was getting a pint with a director friend of mine during the little break between lockdown 1 and 2 when we were allowed to go outside. And I was telling him, like, I just can't find anyone. He's like, oh, there's this woman who lives in my building, and she's like, she's not an actor, she's a Pilates teacher. And sometimes we get high together, and she seems like she's totally up for anything. And I was like, yeah, she sounds great. Show me a picture. And he showed me a picture. And Angela is obviously just so incredibly striking. I was like, oh man, okay, if she can act, if she can really throw herself into it, that's a slam dunk. So I went and I went around to Angela's house and got her to pretend to be a demon, crawl around on her couch and, you know, jump around for an hour and a half, just to see if she'd really throw herself into it. She totally threw 110% in, and it was just clear that she's one of these people who, if she's doing something, she's doing it 100%, and she's really hard on herself. She really pushes herself. She, you know, as soon as we offered her the part, she was totally in, and she did pretty much all of her stunts herself. Up in the tree, the underwater sequence, that's real Angela.
So everybody used their real name in the movie too, right? Like, so yeah. So is that a process that you find helpful when it comes to found footage? Is there a reason that you felt like everyone should just have their own, like, their characters are in a sense sort of a hyperbolized or horrified version of themselves?
Yeah, I think a lot of it just comes to, you want to remove as many barriers as possible between between the reality of the scene and what ends up on screen. And I think we're working off a few pages of treatment. You know, this movie is an improvised movie. We had a kind of skeleton structure, which and then the impetus was on us to figure out the scenes, figure out the dialogue on the day. This movie especially, because you've got Annie and her kind of amazing wit and spontaneity. A lot of the scenes just totally evolved as soon as you put Annie in the middle of it. It's like, oh, of course she wouldn't call the police at this point. Are you crazy? Like, that's what a normal character would do. She'd sing a song, or she rather than reacting with terror and crying, she's going to start laughing and rolling around on the floor. You know, these kind of decisions were just made day by day as we discovered the movie. And I think having the characters use their real names was just allowed the actors to be in the scene that little bit more, rather than having to do the mental gymnastics of like trying to be present, but also trying to kind of bypass that instinct to use each other's names.
How were you shooting the film? Were the actors largely their own cameraman?
It was kind of 50-50. So a lot of the early stuff, it was Annie shooting, and we'd shoot lots of long takes and kind of slowly whittle it down into what the scene would be, and kind of let the a lot of the times, because this is what Annie does, I'd kind of let Annie run wild on the first couple of takes and then start to hone it down. The scare scenes, a lot of the scare scenes, I would operate the camera. We just had this little rig. It was like an iPhone rig. We had two iPhones sandwiched together like this, with the lenses right next to each other. And I had a kind of remote viewing iPad, and I'd be hiding behind the wreckage of a car or whatever, trying to stay within signal. But a lot of the time it would just be here's what I want. Here are the beats that you need to hit. And they'd go off and do it. And then I'd review. So there's a lot of stuff in there that was really chaotic to shoot, because our monitoring system just totally fell apart on the first week. The whole sequence in the mirror maze, I was just outside yelling demon sounds into the tunnels, and I had a spade, and I'd go and kind of bang on the walls to make them run around, but I had no idea what they were filming until they came out, and I watched, and then I'd give them notes, and I'd send them back in, and I'd have to do a lot of it blind. But it ended up meaning that we'd have these amazing moments and angles, and just things that I never would have been able to come up with.
And it doesn't seem choreographed. It seems truly chaotic.
Yeah.
You mentioned the theme park. I have to know, like, where did you discover this? I mean, I did notice that while you were making this film on Twitter, you were frequently asking people for locations. Does anyone know a place that has something like this? Like, presumably to get inserts and to connect some of the locations.
Yeah.
Well, it was kind of scout like.
It was interesting because it was the way that we made Host, the movie that I made before this, which was made totally in lockdown. We had to basically look at, well, what are the things we can actually achieve, and let's write those into the script, rather than writing a script and being like, oh, how do we do this without leaving our houses? We had to kind of work back to front, and it felt like, for these kind of low budget movies, for these fast turnaround movies, to be kind of writing them as we move into production, just allowed us to get the most production value on screen. To be, allowed me to go on Twitter and say, has anyone got anything cool that we can put into this movie? Because it's not fixed yet. It's still kind of amorphous. And if you've got an abandoned theme park, or if you've got if you live in a house full of boa constrictors, like, tell me, and I'll work that into the movie, because I want this, I want every penny of this to be on screen. And actually, Dreamland didn't come from that Twitter search, but Dreamland came from just this kind of serendipitous thing of, like, Annie was actually flying over to the UK to record her new album, and when we kind of we managed to time out the shoot of the movie to be just on the tail of her shooting the album. I already knew that I wanted to be in the movie, to play the Stretch character, although he wasn't called Stretch at the time. And he lives in Margate, and it just turned out that Annie, totally separate to the movie, had arranged to record her album in Margate, this little seaside town in the UK. So she was recording her album just a few doors down from where lived, and so it just became apparent that a big chunk of the movie would be shot in Margate. So we went down there and started scouting around. And as soon as you drive into Margate, you see this big sign for Dreamland. And you see the tip of the kind of wooden roller coaster poking out on the horizon. And as soon as we were driving, I was like, there, I want to shoot there.
I mean, the moment Dreamland shows up, I suddenly am like, oh, we're in a Capcom video game at this point. This feels like Resident Evil. And
again, it was just, we turned up on our Margate Scout. We didn't have anything written. We just knew that we needed to kill Stretch somehow. And we were wandering around, and there was a sign for the mirror maze. I was like, let's do that. And we kind of just worked out the scene on the location scout. And, it's such a kind of nice process. You spend so much time on other movies in endless development, to just be able to turn up and say, oh no, that's the scene. It's great.
Yeah, just the spontaneity of it. I mean, though I imagine there's some very impressive stunt sequences that I imagine did require a lot of planning, specifically like the car crash or the car in the lake. how were those achieved? What were I mean, the specifically the one in the lake feels incredibly dangerous. So
Yeah.
I'm very curious as to, how you achieved that. The fact that you have a performer, whether it was Annie or a stunt performer, in this car that's filling full of water, that is being attacked by Angela. How is that sequence pulled off?
With a lot of difficulty. That was I think the hardest sequence in the whole movie, because it's one of the first scenes we came up with. I've always wanted to do a scene in a car filling up with water, and to add a demon attack into there, it was just felt like the right thing to do. And so just so many complications, and not very much money to do it. This was right at the end of the shoot as well, and it was done. That was done with an Annie stunt double. Annie was back in the States at that point, so we did that actually at the start of this year. We wrapped in December 2020 and came back with a little pocket of money to do this, and we just couldn't afford to do it the normal way. So we had to get creative, whilst also keeping the actors safe. And we ended up just building our own underwater tank to put the car in. We basically got a big skip, like a big metal kind of shipping container, and we got a crane and we lowered the car into it, and then we filled it full of water. And Mike Knights, our practical effects guy, put in a kind of like filtration system that we could get the water in and out, and we cut the roof off the car, so if the actors were feeling claustrophobic, they could just push the roof off the car and get out straight away. Then we blacked the whole thing out, and yeah, it's kind of crazy looking back in retrospect, but we just made our own makeshift version of it, and then got these big like fireman's hoses and just started spraying water in through the windows at the actors.
Oh my gosh. So I think I just lost my train of thought because I was just imagining that build.
I'll show you the pictures of it.
Yeah, I mean, on the subject of practical effects though. The movie builds to a pretty incredible creature that emerges from Angela. What went into the design of that? Who designed it? What was sort of the guiding design principle for it? And one of the things I do love about this film is that all the mythology is largely unexplained. But whatever you are willing to offer about what exactly is going on in that climax, I think the audience would be interested.
Totally. Well, I mean, so first of all, it's designed by Dan Martin, who's our SFX genius. Who
he's the king.
He's the king. You know him, of course.
Possessor and so many recent movies out of the UK are Dan's responsible for the incredible body horror and special effects.
And I always love, I've worked with Dan for a number of years now, and I always love giving Dan a creature to design, because I think you can really see that's where his mind comes to life. And he always thinks in terms of the iconic. He's always trying to create something that's going to be very striking, that's not going to feel like something we've seen before. And I think on this one, the brief really, this ties into the mythology, is this is a creature that can't exist for very long outside of a human host. It goes into a human host, it ages them, it uses them up, it spits them out, and it tries to get into the next one. And so we wanted to kind of create the sense of this thing needed to feel scary and fucked up and dangerous, but also it needed to feel like something that had its shell taken off, that was kind of slimy and gooey and a little exposed, and it needed to feel like it was a pretty even match for Annie. If it got her, it could it could fuck her up, but equally we needed the audience to believe that she could bash its head in with the keyboard at the end. So Dan kind of set to work using a lot of kind of parasite references, because I guess that's what it is. It's like a parasitic demon, to make it seem like it was kind of soft and membraney, and then it was brought to life by James Swanton, who's the amazing creature performer inside of the suit, which is a fucking horrible suit. Like, he had a really awful time of it. It's like,
they always are.
it's like being buried alive inside that suit. As Doug, our producer, can attest, because some of our pickups, Doug was inside the suit. But yeah, no, it's such a cool design.
Well, we only have a little bit of time left, so I have two questions that I wanted to get to. One question is something I haven't yet fully experienced, because we're recording this before the film premieres at TIFF. And when I saw the film, I was informed that there would be a running comments on the film, and you provided me with some scripts of what those comments would look like. Then there was like brief examples in the movie, but they weren't completed yet. Could you just speak that what went into crafting those comments, how you feel they augment and complement the film?
I mean, the reason I look so tired right now is because literally for the past week and a half, I haven't slept at all because we were inputting like 5,000 comments into this movie that had all been individually written by a small team of people. And the idea with the comments, the idea with the comments was to kind of provide a running commentary on some of the kind of some of the kind of discourse that we weren't so interested in exploring in depth in the movie gets kind of like extrapolated in the comments. There's liberal voices, there's conservative voices, there's conspiracy theorist voices. It also kind of helps keep that thread of humor running throughout. You can have a very different experience watching the comments versus watching what's going on screen. And I don't know, because I haven't screened it to anyone with the comments, but I'd be so interested to see. It might be a totally exhausting experience having to flit your eyes back and forth, but I'm hoping you can kind of have a primary experience of watching the movie, and then you can dive into the comments on a repeat viewing, and you can see that we've threaded characters within the commenters. There's more information about the kind of backstory that the kind of armchair sleuths in the comments are figuring out. And there are just little fun details that are hidden within the main narrative that are kind of where some light is shown on them from reading the comments. And also I think it's I wanted the audience to kind of, and I kind of talked about this a bit with how we made Host as well. But part of making up a horror movie is kind of setting up pace and expectation. You're almost kind of teaching the audience how to watch the movie and what to expect. And there's a bit that happens towards the end of the second act of the movie where the commenters all cut off and they don't return until the very end of the movie. And I wanted the audience to feel that sense of quiet and that sense of, oh, we're alone now. And for the third act of the movie, which really amps up in intensity and doesn't really let up until that final shot, I wanted the audience to feel like it was just them and Annie for that final stretch. So I think, it hopefully it does a number of things, but it's also just a really fun Easter egg for people to keep going back to.
And speaking of Easter eggs, my final question I'm going to ask is, as a big fan of Host, and I'm sure many people watching are big fans of Host, the movie shares some cast members, but specifically the woman who kind of, is passes Angela off to Annie is also the woman who kind of gets the séance wrong in Séance. Am I correct? And was that the same actress?
Yeah. Salem Baxter.
Yeah. Is there any? Am I reading anything? Is this a Rob Savage cinematic universe in development here?
I mean, I would love that. There was talk at some point of her wearing the same costume from Host. So when she comes to kind of tell Annie off for being behind the counter, it's like she's just disappeared from the séance for a moment to reprimand a customer. But no, I mean, I love those guys, and I wanted to bring in as many of them as possible. Actually, all of the Host girls show up in the movie in the background in certain moments. Everyone gets a little cameo, and it's really just because of the way that we make these movies. They're totally improvised. We turn up on the day and it says Annie and Gemma have an argument, and it's kind of on us to come up with the scene and to throw ideas together. And so really, when I'm picking actors to work with, I'm picking the writers of the film, the directors of the film, I'm picking all the collaborators, and to just know that these guys are going to turn up and smash it is, it makes my life a lot easier.
Well, thank you so much, Rob. Really enjoyed this conversation. Can't wait to hang at the festival itself, and hope to see you really soon. Oh,
sorry.
What was that?
It's just been happening more and more since I made Host and now this one. I think I'm going to do a rom-com next, I think.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's terrifying.
Mm.
You know what?
Yeah, we should probably wrap this up.
I think we should wrap this up.
Sort this out.
But Rob, please text me later or call me to make sure you're okay. I'm very concerned that something might be.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, just text me when you get home. Everybody, I hope you enjoyed it, and don't forget to vote for the film for the PCAs. I've been Peter Kaplowski. This is Toronto International Film Festival. Thank you.